I'm Nikki.
And hi, I'm Carrie. Welcome back to our first full-length official episode of Breaking Bread. If you joined us on our first introductory episode, you learned that we are going to be talking about bread and the components, breaking it down, not only how to make the bread, but how it affects us in our relationships, the history, the components, and most importantly, how we can apply those things spiritually.
Because we love bread. We told you that already.
Yes, love bread and love Jesus. That's right.
Two moms who love bread and love Jesus, and that's why we are here. But today is a special episode. Remember, we talked about how we are part of something called Cold Media. So today we are not alone. We have Damika with us in the house. Whoop, whoop. Hey guys. Damika is going to have her own playlist with show dedicated strictly to health in your whole body, a whole concept. You need to go check that out. Please do not miss out on that. You will regret it if you don't. So.
And Damika, the name of that is Whole Armor Health, right?
Yes, ma'am. I'm excited.
Yay! Glad you're here chatting with us today.
So we said we're going to break the bread and we're going to break down bread, right? So the first ingredient we said we're going to talk about is salt. But let me tell you, salt is not what you think. Salt has always had this like negative connotation. Even in Spanish, like when you think in English, you say, oh, you're being salty, and that's negative, right? And in Spanish, when you say you're being salty, estás salado, it means that everything is going wrong for you. But then when you start looking into salt, what salt is, what it means, and what we talked about, our connotation, implication, what the Bible says about salt, we see it as the complete opposite of it.
Right.
So you, my friend, have been deceived about salt.
Yes.
And we are here to break that connotation from your mind and replace it with what salt is. And let me tell you, your brain is going to be blown
it was
away.
Completely mind-blowing. I know I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and the saying now is, you were saying everything's going bad for you, but now you hear, oh, she's being salty, and that just means they kind of have attitude or they're being picky or whatever. But that was not the case.
No. But let's talk about salt. Let's start with the basics. What is salt, Carrie? When you think about salt, and how is it used, though? Okay, when you talk about salt, of course, everybody knows how salt tastes. But there are multiple ways that you can get salt. There's something called rock salt, which is what we have here. It's our pink Himalayan salt, and it comes from the earth. It's rock salt. Then you have sea salt, which is from, obviously, the sea. One that I really like to use is Celtic sea salt. It is very high magnesium content, so it is a wet salt, but it contains a very, very high content of minerals that are essential to the same minerals that we need in our body. Because salt is not just sodium. Salt has magnesium, it has calcium, it has potassium, it has iodine. If you purchase and you don't use that table salt. We never recommend using just regular table
that iodized table salt. No. It also has magnesium, potassium. Some of them have boron, which is again an essential nutrient. So basically a lot of things that our body needs. Even in nature, you hear about animals, they will seek out salt and lick salt blocks because it helps the body regain nutrients that may be lost when you're exercising or sweat.
So when you think about it, salt is essential for our body. It's something we need.
It is literally essential to life.
Do you have any connotations about that in the exercise?
Yeah, from a health standpoint there?
No, not really. I get that a lot of people have a negative connotation to it, but because of my industry, I've never had that concept. Like I know that it's something essential to the body. So, but I agree. I love that you guys are breaking it down and breaking down strongholds.
Yes, salt is good. Well, and I learned something not that long ago that even when you are drinking water, you need those essential
minerals.
Thank you. What's the ones that you need? Salt, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. It starts with an E.
Electrolytes?
Thank you.
Yeah. Electrolytes.
Okay, I had a moment. Electrolytes. So when you're talking about electrolytes and you have to go to the hospital, and they hook you up to an IV. What is in there?
Sodium.
There are I learned this. There are 9,000 milligrams of sodium in that bag of saline solution. That's what they use to rehydrate the body the fastest. They get that salt, high sodium content in there to pull in all of the water into the cells of your body.
So if you think about it, it's not bad. It's essential. But it also hydrates you, which all of us are walking around dehydrated. So drink your water, please. Like, reminder. And not only that, the fact that it heals and it like soothes like symptoms, and because that's one of the first things you do. You go to the hospital automatically, they stick one of those. So.
Right. So the main things that it does, it disinfects. They use it for medicine. I know anytime you go to the doctor and you have a sore throat or you have a toothache, what do? They say gargle with salt water.
Salt water, yep.
Yep. And also in medicine, they would use it to clean the wounds. And that hurts. I wouldn't recommend that. I've actually done that before. It does not feel good. But in a pinch, it works. And it stops the spread of infection. So that's
awesome.
Yeah. So the whole reason...
That cleans?
I'm going to hold it. So y'all get there.
Okay.
I'm going to get there.
So one of the whole reasons that we're breaking down salt is because Jesus called us the salt of the earth, right? So that means we should be a good thing.
It should be preserving, should be flavoring,
stopping infection.
Infections from spreading.
Exactly.
Sounds like a lot of work. But also, when we talk about a historical context, the Romans would even get paid in salt, and that blew my mind, because when we think of salt and like table salt, we're like, this is like less than $1. Like, it's nothing. Salt is like, oh yeah, every table has a little bit of salt. Like, it's not. We never consider it something valuable. And when you start looking at the historical context, what people used to do, we used to go to this awesome pizza place, and the gentleman who owned it was Greek, and he told us, he's like, we didn't have salt. We had to go and like fetch the water and let it dry up, evaporate.
That's cool.
And that's how we got our salt. So it's something valuable, and it's something they had to work for, and it's something that was worth more than money. They would get paid with it as if it was money. So when you start, again, removing those back negative connotations of this is not just a 50-cent thing in the supermarket or $1, whatever it costs nowadays. It's something that's worth.
Well, even our word for salary,
that's where it comes
from the world,
because
from the word salt.
They used to get paid in salt.
That's good.
So that's where it all comes from. So it's like you start seeing the worth of it in a human nature historically, and now when we go to the Bible view of it, like you said, we are called to be the salt. That's Matthew 5:13.
Right.
You are the salt of the earth, but if you lose your taste, then what's gonna happen?
Toss it out.
It's gonna be tossed. Talking about tossed out.
Trampled underfoot.
Talking about tossed out.
Yeah.
We were looking that up.
That was wild.
That was crazy, because usually we think it's something bad or negative or like evil.
You hear people, they would take salt and like throw it over their shoulder and things like that. Yeah, left one, wrong one.
for like good luck or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was more than that.
It was spiritual.
It
was a spiritual connotation. In fact, one thing said, it was really funny. We laughed when we read it. It said that they believed that when you threw it over your left shoulder, if you were going to do something, it would blind the devil.
Because he was coming for you.
Because he was coming for you, and you throw the salt over your shoulder and blind the devil.
Well, that's the thing. That's like how powerful they believed it was, or how powerful it really is, and we don't understand that.
Right.
But they would even think it will blind the enemy, and it would like burn that.
Right.
Like, come on.
Well, if the enemy is infection, and you're here to stop infection, you throw the salt, you know.
That's what it's like.
Yeah.
Again, even that little thing.
Yeah.
Even one little thing that we always thought, oh no, don't do that. That's evil. Like, that's not. No.
Yeah.
Like, this is where it comes from. The history of it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to me, because when in that verse in Matthew, when it talks about the salt losing its flavor, that is something that I had never thought about. I was like, wait, what? This can lose how does that work? And you were telling me a little bit about that. How does salt lose its flavor?
So this is actually has huge spiritual connotations to it. There are only two ways that salt can lose its flavor. Through contamination or through isolation.
Oh, that's
good. Contamination. We're the salt of the earth, but if we let things of the world in to affect us, that's going to contaminate our effectiveness.
Which is crazy because salt is supposed to be, what is the word? Aseptic? Is that the word? So it's like, it doesn't...
Right, it's supposed to affect change in what it's put into. But if those contaminations come in...
Affecting.
Exactly. Yeah. And the one that I thought was the most powerful was isolation. They said the way that a salt will lose its flavors if you take a single grain of salt...
And separate it
from the pile of salt.
Wow.
That blew my mind.
That's good.
Because even in our introduction, we talked about Acts 2 and how they met together daily. They broke bread together. They were together all the time. And the fastest way that the enemy can pick us off is to isolate us from the flock.
That's crazy to me. We are built, when you think about it, we're built for community. And that's just an easy way. And it's true, even I separated one a while back and it's already losing its color. It's not even pink anymore.
Well, and another thing I thought was interesting, we were pouring out the salt in the beginning and we were looking at some expiration dates and we tasted one of these because
it's
according to the label, it said it was expired, but it was
very salty.
Plenty of salt flavor there. So
that is crazy. So again, also in Mark chapter 9, verses 49 and 50, it also talks about very similar, but it's worded a little different. And in the end, it's also different. It says, for everyone will be seasoned with fire, and every sacrifice will be seasoned with salt. Because that's another thing it was used for. In the Old Testament, we can see that salt was put, it was almost like a command, it was put on every offering, the grain offering. It had to be seasoned with that salt. And again, it goes, salt is good. It says it in the word, salt is good. But if the salt loses its flavor, how will you season it? And then it says, have salt in yourselves and have peace with one another. And that's how this one is a little different than that. So we have to keep that in mind, that it's not only for ourselves, like we were talking, it's about that effect that has in others and staying together.
And I really like how the New Living Translation says it. It says, you must have the qualities of salt among you and then live and be at peace with each other. The qualities of salt. So we need to disinfect. We need to be medicinal to those around us. We need to have some flavor. Preservation. We haven't talked about preservation yet.
That's a big one too.
Because
they didn't have fridge.
Right. No refrigerators.
So that's how they used to preserve and keep safe.
They would bury their meat and fish in it, and that's what it would. I mean, you think of salt cured hams and
amazing flavor.
Salted pork.
I'm gonna get hungry.
Making us hungry, so he wants some bread.
That is crazy. I think we've learned a lot today about salt. That's amazing. But it doesn't stop there.
Correct.
It goes forward a little later in the word in Luke. Luke 14 verses 34 and 35 again. It says, salt is good. Well, what if it loses it? How is it going to be seasoned? If it's neither fit for the land nor yet for the dunghill, but men cast it out. I started looking at that last pieces of all these verses about if salt has all these amazing qualities. It can do all these amazing things. Yet, if it's not focused on its purpose, it's worthless. So, what we were talking about in that initial introductory episode, we are called, we all have a purpose in this life. And when we are not focused on that, everything else loses sense. So I think that's another good invitation to not only remember the qualities of salt and having those qualities in your life, but then being focused on on expressing those to others and fulfilling that call and that purpose in your life. Because otherwise, one of the verses says you're going to be trampled upon. Like it's going to be thrown on the floor and trampled over. Like hashtag don't be trampled on.
Yes.
No, we don't want that.
Well, and if you think about it, when Jesus was telling this to them, they had that mentality that we have to kind of make ourselves get into. The most valuable thing is going to be trampled on.
That's crazy.
So it's not going to be worth anything. And it just brought to my mind 1 Corinthians 13. All of these things, if you do this and don't have love, it profits you nothing.
That's good.
So it's like we're supposed to take that salt and take that seasoning and make others thirsty. Because if I were to sit here and chew a piece of salt, it would make me really thirsty.
For the living water.
Yes. So if we're not out there being salty in a good way, we want, when we're in the presence of other people, especially those that don't know Jesus, we want to be that salt to have them lean in a little bit and say, I'm kind of thirsty. What is it? What is it you've got?
Yes.
Create that thirst. Yeah, taste and see that the Lord is good. Ooh, this is cool.
That is good. And then I think it said in Colossians that talks about salting your conversations, like sprinkling some salt here and there. So that's all it is. It's like bringing them in and creating that little curiosity and let the Holy Spirit do the rest of the work, right? We're just meant to go and...
So you guys got to create a new hashtag, be salty.
Be salty. Well, and a little homeschool science-y tidbit that I learned just in the last couple of weeks. All of this is very timely. It's funny, we're going to be talking about this, and all these experiences and lessons started coming up about salt. We were studying about dehydration and hydration and that kind of thing. And the fastest way to hydrate the body, we talked about the IV, but they said if you take and put a piece of salt on your tongue and drink water, what does the salt do? The salt sitting on your tongue, actually, if you look at a picture of a cell, it opens up the cell to be able to accept the water.
Oh.
So it's the fastest way to hydrate your body. So if you come in from a long, hot day, and, before you drink down 5 glasses of water, put some salt in your mouth before you do it, because the tongue has the biggest receptors as far as pulling in nutrients and things to the body. A lot of times when you take drops as a medicine, with your kids, you put it under their tongue because that's, it just brings all those nerve endings. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what all it is, but I know it's fast. But if you put the salt there and drink water, it actually opens the cell receptors to be able to accept that. And it's like, so what are we doing? If we are not doing our part, we want to pull people in to the knowledge of Christ, not, let's push them away. It's like, again, that hashtag be salty.
And do it in an effective way. So salt makes that process more effective. So again, it's going back to all the qualities of it, but then its purpose. It's like amazing to me. I think this is great.
So good.
Yeah.
We have learned really so much about salt.
Yes.
About being the salt. It's like salt is all you need.
Well, and funny story. I was baking a loaf of bread once, and I was baking like 8 loaves at once, so I needed a lot of salt. So I had my container and I was pouring it into the bowl, and you know how salt sometimes gets a clump? It went, and all of a sudden this huge wave of salt went into my bowl. So there was already water in the bowl, so I'm sitting there with a spoon trying to scoop out all of the extra salt.
It's probably too much already.
It was still too much, so I was like, I'm going to bake it anyway and see what happens. So I baked it. Well, it came out just not looking nice and fluffy like this. It was hard, it was dense, and it tasted really salty. But then I was like, well, why didn't my bread rise? I didn't connect the salt. And I was like, why didn't this bread rise? And so I got on my phone and I started Googling, well, why, what makes your bread not to rise? Does salt do that? And it says that in baking, salt is essential to have the perfect balance, because if you don't put enough in it, the flavor won't be there. But then if you put too much, it actually hinders the development of the yeast that makes the bread rise.
Which is crazy, because when you think about salt is the activator for that baking soda, for that baking powder, and then it's all about that balance. And I think it's the same in the body, right? If you have too much salt, your blood pressure. If you have too little salt, you're dehydrated. So it's about finding that perfect balance.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Salt is great, guys.
Salt is great.
We need to be salty.
Yeah. And something
like
else.
that. We're made to be salty.
We're made to be salty.
That's our second hashtag.
Yes. Made to be salty. That's right.
The mug.
Salty. Hashtag be salty.
Made to be salty.
Well, some other uses for salt. Like, how do you use salt? Have you ever used salt for anything other than cooking?
Not really. I'm learning a lot today.
Not when you have a sore throat? You've never used it when you had a sore throat?
That's
rarely. Old school.
And mostly like when when your teeth falls off and things like that with the kids.
Yeah, you rinse it out with salt water. Well, I started
a whole bucket of salt now.
Well, I bought a huge thing of salt for my baking, but I also started making natural products. And I'm amazed salt is in all of them. And I make my own toothpaste. Salt is in there. The recipe.
That's crazy.
I make my own mouthwash. There's some salt in there. I make my own laundry detergent powder. It's basically 4 kinds of salt because I looked up baking soda, and apparently baking soda is sodium bicarbonate, I think is the technical name. So it's salt. So I use baking soda, which is salt, washing soda, which is a higher concentration of baking soda, Epsom salt, and sea salt. It does everything. So there are so many uses for salt. And as Christians, Paul says, be all things to all people. It's like, even if you come across somebody and they're unlovable or they're this or they're that and you don't know what to do, it's like you have to find the way to season their life.
I like that.
So they're like, oh, well, I don't eat salt or I can't tolerate salt to eat it. Well, how can you get Jesus and infiltrate their life? So it's not limited to just putting it into bread. Just like we're not limited to just, standing on the street corner preaching. It's about living our lives as salt and light.
Wherever we are. The corporate world, here, there, the classroom, wherever we are. I love that. That's amazing. Be salty.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, Miss Damika, do you have anything you'd like to?
No, you guys are amazing. Good stuff.
Well, I say just to end on a note. Here we go. We're gonna do this. Say cheers.
So
and we're gonna hydrate. We're gonna put this salt on our tongue. And it's really salty.
What do we do?
And you just drink. Hold the water in your mouth for a minute.
That's good. I like it. It's salty. You know what? That's good also because in our next episode, we're going to be breaking down water.
Water. That's the next ingredient in our bread. First we had salt, then we had water. So stay tuned. And don't forget to check out our other playlists. Miss Damika has her episodes out there. We have our husbands in the garage, and then Nikki, you guys have one too, right?
For marriage, and that one is in Spanish. For our Spanish speakers, we're gonna have one just for you guys. So
that's awesome.
Check those playlists out. Share this video with someone who loves bread as much as we do, and we will see you in the next episode.
All right. Bye.